Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, we are from group 3. The material about language and culture. The member of this group, Dita Dwi Lestani, Karisma Sekar Arum, Elma Puji Lestari, Tita Anggun, and then Septi Nurisnaini. Okay, the first material explained by me. In a culture, have something that has function in society, and it is a language. And then in their language is a master of speech of human being. Have a three main function of language. The first is cultural perspective, or it is primary means of the perceiving the culture and the medium of transmitting the culture of the new generation. And the second, language is help establish and preserve community by linking individual into communities of the shared identity. And then the third, societal level. It is important to all aspects of human interaction because it is often relate the political goals. And then culture. A society culture consists of the whatever it is has known or believe in order to operate a manner acceptable to its member and to do so in any rule that they accept for anyone for themselves. And then culture, in the culture we are mostly include eminence characteristic that exist rare in other. Have a relationship between language and culture. The first structure of language determines the way of the language that a speaker of that language view the language of word. And then culture is related in the language culture recruitment to not determinant structure of the language but influences how it used. Okay, the next, language influences culture atau bahasa mempengaruhi budaya. Have a Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. The word is present in a kaleidoscopic flux of impressions which has to be organized in our minds, and this means largely by linguistic system in our minds. It is theory by Whorf. Okay, from the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis consists of two associated principles. The first, linguistic determinism, and then linguistic relativism. Okay, the first, linguistic determinism. According to Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, all the higher levels of thinking are dependent of language, or language mainly determine our thinking pattern, the way we view and thinking about words. Jadi linguistic determinism ini language determine truth, and the different language impose different conception of reality. And then the next, linguistic relativism. The hypothesis also holds that because language differ in many ways, speakers of different language perspective and experience the world differently relative to their linguistic background, hence the notion of linguistic relativism. Language influence thinking. In linguistic relativism, language influence thinking, and then linguistic difference between cultures are associated with cultures differences in thinking. And then next, for example, in the English preposition on, it's both used for vertical and horizontal. For example, book on the table. Itu menandakan bahwa buku itu berada di tempat yang horizontal. The calendar is on the wall. Jadi menandakan bahwa kalender di sini tuh berada di dinding menggunakan preposition on. But jadi di bahasa Inggris sendiri tuh on itu bisa saja tempat yang horizontal atau vertikal. Tetapi in Germany there are two kind of them. Jadi apabila buku di tempat yang vertikal, dia menggunakan an, and then auf itu digunakan untuk tempat yang horizontal. Jadi seperti itu. And then the next example, Eskimo, different term to describe snow. In English, snow is salju atau, but in the Eskimo, apun is a snow of the ground. Jadi salju yang berada di tanah, the name is apun, and then salju yang berada di tanah yang salju keras yang berada di tanah itu dinamakan kanika. And then the next example, Arabic has many words for different kinds of camel. Jadi di Arab itu banyak sekali penyebutan dari unta, tapi in the Chinese only one term like a lotuo, atau di Indonesia sendiri itu cuma ada unta, ya unta, tetapi in the Arabic banyak sekali jenis panggilan dari unta itu sendiri. Seperti itu. Okay? The next presentation by Karisma Sekar Harum.
Kinship is a sociological term. In simple societies, kinship relation can be as extensive and very important as a means of a social system in a more complex society. Kinship is usually a fairly small part of the totality of social relationship that make up the social system. Jadi di sini kinship itu kekerabatan atau istilah sosiologi dalam masyarakat sederhana. Hubungan kekerabatan dapat begitu luas dan sangat penting sebagai sarana sistem sosial. Dalam masyarakat yang lebih kompleks, biasanya kekerabatan merupakan bagian yang cukup kecil dari totalitas hubungan sosial yang membentuk sistem sosial. Next. Definition kinship. Definition kinship a close connection marked by community in interested or similarity in nature or character. Jadi di sini definisi kekerabatan hubungan erat yang ditandai oleh minat atau kesamaan dalam sifat atau karakter komunitas. Next. Kinship system. Kinship system are a universal feature of linguistics because kinship is so important in social organization. Some systems are much richer than others, but I'll make use of one of the attraction that kinship system have for investigator is that the subfactors are fairly readily ascertainable. You can therefore relate them with considerable confidence to the actual word that people use to describe a particular kin relationship. Jadi, sistem kekerabatan adalah fitur bahasa universal karena kekerabatan sangat penting dalam organisasi sosial. Beberapa sistem jauh lebih kaya daripada yang lain, tetapi semua memanfaatkan salah satu atraksi sistem kekerabatan yang memiliki atau untuk penyelidik adalah bahwa para dermawan ini cukup mudah dipastikan. Anda maksudnya. Karenanya dapat menghubungkan mereka dengan keyakinan yang cukup besar dengan kata-kata aktual yang digunakan orang untuk menggambarkan hubungan tertentu. Jadi intinya kinship itu kekerabatan atau sosiologi atau sosiologi dalam masyarakat sederhana.
Okay, the next material is taxonomies. Taxonomies come from Greek, consist of two words, namely taxis and nomos. Taxis mean arranging or arranging something, while nomos mean habits or rules. So taxonomies can be interpreted as rules for arranging or arranging something. Taksonomi berasal dari bahasa Yunani yang terdiri dari dua kata, yaitu taksis dan nomos. Taksis berarti mengatur atau menyusun sesuatu, sedangkan nomos berarti kebiasaan atau aturan. Jadi taksonomi dapat diartikan sebagai untuk aturan, untuk menyusun atau mengatur sesuatu. Example, when we try to check the music collection on our computer, usually we will arrange it based on the music genre, such as jazz, classical, pop, to dangdut. Contohnya, ketika kita mencoba untuk mengecek koleksi musik di komputer kita, biasanya kita menyusunnya berdasarkan genre musik seperti jazz, klasik, pop, sampai dangdut. Function in general, taxonomy has several functions. Number 1, greater and structure similar content. Number 2, can identify which data or information is useful for oneself and others. Number 3, to control vocabulary. Secara umum, taksonomi memiliki beberapa fungsi. Yang pertama, mengumpulkan dan menyusun konten yang sejenis. Yang kedua, dapat mengidentifikasi data atau informasi mana yang berguna bagi diri sendiri atau orang lain. Yang ketiga, untuk mengkontrol kosakata. Taxonomy models. Taxonomy models have 4 models. Number 1, biological taxonomy. Biological taxonomy involving nature. For example, classification of flora and fauna. Taksonomi biologi adalah taksonomi yang melibatkan seperti alam. Contohnya, pengklasifikasian flora dan fauna. Number 2, pedological taxonomy or taxonomy of soil science. Soil taxonomy is made based on a number of variables that characterize the state of a soil type. For example, any soil. Soil type is soil formed from young volcanic ice. Yang kedua, taksonomi pedologi atau taksonomi dalam ilmu tanah. Taksonomi dalam ilmu tanah dibuat berdasarkan jumlah variabel yang mencirikan keadaan suatu jenis tanah. Contohnya, jenis tanah andesol yang terbentuk dari abu vulkanik muda. Number 3, Bloom taxonomy or taxonomy in education. This taxonomy is created to clarify educational goals. The purpose of education is divided into several domains, namely cognitive, affective, and psychomotors. For example, the cognitive domain is classified into 3 parts, namely knowledge, abilities, and skill. Bloom taxonomy atau yang biasa kita kenal adalah taksonomi dalam bidang pendidikan. Taksonomi ini dibuat untuk pengklasifikasian tujuan dari pendidikan. Tujuan dari pendidikan itu sendiri dibagi maksudnya memiliki beberapa atau lebih tepatnya 3 domain, yaitu kognitif, afektif, dan psikomotor. Contoh dari Bloom Taxonomy yaitu dalam domain kognitif diklasifikasikan menjadi 3 bagian, yaitu pengetahuan, kemampuan, dan keterampilan. The number 4, flood taxonomy. This taxonomy is made by social knowledge and is used by everyday people. Example, number 1, pack animals, or animal used to carry goods, like camels, donkey, and horse. Number 2, hunter animals, or animals for foods, such as chicken, cows, and sheep. Folk taxonomy may vary in each region. For example, cattle are not included in foodstuff in India, while in Indonesia, cows or cattle are included as animal for foodstuff. Yang terakhir atau yang keempat yaitu folk taxonomy atau yang biasa kita sebut taksonomi rakyat. Taksonomi rakyat dibuat berdasarkan pengetahuan sosial dan sesuatu yang digunakan oleh masyarakat setiap harinya. Contohnya, yang pertama pack animal atau hewan yang biasa digunakan untuk membawa barang seperti unta, keledai, dan kuda. Yang kedua, hunter animal atau hewan yang digunakan sebagai bahan makanan seperti ayam, sapi, dan domba. Dan taksonomi rakyat ini berbeda-beda di setiap negara atau wilayah. Contohnya, di India, sapi tidak termasuk sebagai hewan yang digunakan untuk bahan makanan karena menurut orang India sendiri, sapi adalah hewan yang disucikan. Sedangkan di Indonesia, sapi termasuk hewan yang digunakan sebagai bahan makanan.
The definition of color terminology. Color terminology is the term that's used by the people to describe color. Different cultures have different terms for colors and may also assign some color terms to slightly different parts of the human color space. On the other explanation, color is all around, but it is not everywhere treated in the same way. We sometimes cannot directly translate color words from one language to another without introduction from subtle changes in meaning. For example, English brown and Indonesia chocolate. That means every place around the world has its own terms for describing color, whether it has some similarities or not. The basic color of color terminology. Here are some characteristics of the basic color terms. A basic color term must be a single word. For example, yellow, blue, or not some combination of words. For example, light blue and pale yellow. It must have quite general use, and in which it must be applied only a very narrow range of objects, as for example, bones is applied in English almost exclusively to color of hair and wood. The term must not be highly restricted in the sense that it is used by only a specific subset of speakers, such as interior decoration or fashion writers. Color spectrum. The color spectrum is physical continuum showing no breaks at all, yet the parcel if out the bytes and piece and assign names to the various component parts: green, blue, yellow, red, and so on. Lucy, 1997, is highly critical of the above claim, declaring that you cannot find out what color means to speakers by simply asking them to label muscle color chips. He said, color is not out there in the light but in our perceptual interpretation of light, communicatively relevant at coding of visual experience do not lie in there in the biology but in social accord linguistic system. In this alternate view, color systems are social constructions rather than biologically determined ones. The issue is still unresolved. Berlin and Kay said the basic color terms found in a wide variety of language reveal certain very interesting patterns. Here are the patterns of basic language, such as if a language has only two terms, they are equivalent for black and white or dark or light. If a third is added, it is red, so they become black, white, and red. The fourth and fifth term will be yellow and green, but the order may be reversed, so they become black, white, red, yellow, and green. The sixth and seventh terms are blue and brown, so they become black, white, red, yellow, green, blue, and brown. Finally, as in English, come terms like gray, pink, orange, purple, but not in any particular order, so they become black, white, red, yellow, green, blue, brown, gray, pink, orange, and purple. The relationship between language and culture in color terminology. An attempt has been made to relate the extent of color terminology in specific languages with the level of cultural and technical complexity of those societies in which these languages are spoken. There is some reason to believe that communities that show little technological development employ the fewest color terms. For example, the Chile of New Guinea have words corresponding to dark and light alone. On the other hand, technologically advanced societies have terms corresponding to all 11 mentioned above. Societies in intermediate stage have intermediate numbers. For example, the Tiv of Nigeria has 3 terms, the Gara of Assam and the Hanuno of the Philippines have 4, and the Burners have 7. The prototype theory. Definition of prototype theory. Prototype theory is a mode of graded categorization in cognitive science, where some members of a category are more central than others. For example, when asked to give an example of the concept furniture, chair is more frequently cited than, say, computer desk. The term prototype has been defined in Eleanor Rose's study Natural Categories 1973 and was first defined as a stimulus which takes a salient position in the formation of the category, as it is the first stimulus to be associated with the category. Later, she redefined it as the most central member of a category. The relationship between language and culture and prototype. According to Hudson, prototype theory may even be applied to the social situation in which speech occurs. He suggests that when we hear a new linguistic item, we associate with it that typically seems to use it, and what apparently in the typical occasion of its use. Again, we need very few instances, even possible just single one, to be able to do this. Of course, if the particular instance is atypical and we fail to recognize this thought, we could be in for some discomfort at a later time when we treat it as typical. Taboo and euphemism. Taboo is the prohibition or avoidance in any society of behavior believed to be harmful to its members, in that it will cause them anxiety, embarrassment, or shame. It is an extremely strong politeness constraint. Taboo subjects can vary widely: sex, death, excretion, bodily function, religious matters, and politics. Tabu adalah larangan atau penghindaran dalam masyarakat manapun atas perilaku yang diyakini berbahaya bagi anggota mereka karena akan menyebabkan mereka merasa takut, cemas, atau malu. Topik tabu bisa sangat bervariasi, mulai dari seks, kematian, fungsi tubuh, masalah agama, dan juga politik. Sejauh ini, sehubungan dengan bahasa, hal-hal tertentu atau objek tertentu tidak boleh dikatakan, tetapi bisa dirujuk hanya dalam keadaan tertentu atau melalui pengelompokan yang disengaja secara halus. Di samping itu, selalu ada orang yang siap menunjukkan kebebasan dari batasan sosial untuk mengekspos hal tabu sebagai hal yang tidak rasional dan tidak dapat dibenarkan, seperti dalam gerakan tertentu untuk kebebasan berbicara. Contoh dari tabu adalah seperti menunjuk sesuatu dengan jari telunjuk. Menunjuk sesuatu dengan jari telunjuk dianggap tidak sopan oleh masyarakat. Maka dari itu, kebanyakan orang akhirnya menggunakan ibu jari atau jari jempol untuk menunjuk sesuatu karena dianggap lebih sopan. The next slide is euphemism. Euphemism is used to soften the meaning of words and to avoid meaning those words directly. Without euphemism, any language will seem to be vulgar and rude and void of politeness to some degree. In search for an acceptable definition, one is confronted with its different dimensions. Eufemisme adalah gaya bahasa yang digunakan orang dalam berkomunikasi sosial untuk mencapai efek komunikasi yang ideal. Eufemisme dapat menghindari dan melembutkan hal tabu dan topik sensitif atau canggung. Tanpa eufemisme, bahasa apapun akan tampak kasar dan menjadi vulgar serta tidak sopan. Dalam mencari definisi yang dapat diterima, seseorang akan dihadapkan dengan perbedaan dimensi atau ukuran. Contoh dari eufemisme sendiri adalah penggunaan kata meninggal lebih halus dari kata mati. Taboo and euphemism affect us all. We may not be as deeply conscious of the effects as they know, but affect us they do. We all probably have a few things we refuse to talk about and still others we do not talk about directly. Tabu dan eufemisme mempengaruhi kita semua. Kita mungkin tidak terlalu menyadari efek dari tabu dan eufemisme, tapi kita semua mungkin memiliki beberapa hal yang mungkin kita tolak untuk dibicarakan dan yang lainnya tidak kami bicarakan secara langsung. While we may find some thought too deep for words, something hard to prove, others we definitely take care not to express at all, even though we know the words, or else we express ourselves on them very indirectly. Each social group is different from every other in how constrains linguistic behavior in this way, but constrain it in some such way it certainly does. Perhaps one linguistic universal is that no social group use language quiet uninhibitedly.
Okay, thank you for watching this video. Sorry for our mistake. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.